giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I'm an identity coach, spiritual teacher, business mentor, and creator and founder of not only Just a Live TV, but also the Women Supporting Women Can Network. Today, we're going to be talking about raising smarter kids. The struggle of raising kids today, how we can raise them smarter and with more strength, courage, and of course, self-love, because who doesn't want kids that are, aware of who they are? Today's episode has been sponsored by A Phoenix Identity. If you see that your kids are struggling with their identity, their emotions, and their life in general, go ahead and sign up for the wait list for my new program, Smarter Kids, right? Raising Smarter Kids, which is kind of technically the title of this thing, because why not? Check out the infographic about it. SMARTER is actually an acronym, so all of those links are in the description of this video. And go and check out our guest speaker today, Janet Krebs. Her information is linked in this video, so you can go and check her out at any point in time. And Janet, why don't I hand it over for you to introduce yourself?
So fun. Hello, audience. Hello, everybody, wherever you are in the world. My name is Janet Krebs, and I'm actually, what are we? Are we inspirers? Are we coaches? I'm a speaker. I am simply passionate about getting this message out now and for as long as I'm walking the face of the earth. So do we need a title? No. I like to think of my program as, and you may not even know this, but slight pivot. Like Raising Independence was the name, but then I got to thinking, are we raising in dependence with a dash, or are we raising independence? It's kind of all about the dash, right? Because if we are raising in dependence, so therein lies the difference. And, your viewers, parents, grandparents, like, what's the difference and why does it matter? Matters a ton. So that's where we're going with today's conversation.
Absolutely. I think a little bit of both, right? Independence and independence, right? We want our children to be independent, but we also want to be independent, for ourselves, right? So I absolutely love that you said that. I think that I see so many issues, even with my own kids. I've seen so many issues about the way that we're raising children, right? Our parents, like I know for my generation, it was, I went down the street, I went to the park. If I heard my mom whistle, it was come back home, right? It was freedom. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have tracking devices. I track all my kids. They all know that mom wants to know where we are. I don't care where they are, but I want to know that they're safe, right? And so they give me the ability to track them through their phones, right? But at the same time, it's, they have their own life and they're able to do things. We had more of that, right? We played on the street and we knew to come home when the street lights went out or street lights went on, right? That's when you went home, was when your street lights went on. And we're living in a completely different society, right? Where we had to learn things the hard way. We had to learn how to cope. We had to fend for ourselves and do all of these things. We learned how to cope. We learned how to learn and grow, right? And you look at all the adults today who are struggling with mental health, who are struggling with their identity, with their ability to be independent adults. And we're teaching that to our children now. Now you've got, and no judgment to anybody watching, right? If you're one of these parents, then no problem, right? We are where we are. There's no shame, guilt, or blame being where you're at, right? This show is all about awareness, right? No matter where you're at, you're not going to be shame and guilted, but having awareness of where you're at. And one of those is helicopter parents, right? We've become helicopter parents where you send your kids to the playground, you have to be with them. You have to make sure they don't fall. And if they do fall, then you coddle them. I taught myself how to ride a bike because she couldn't be bothered, right? And I had to pick myself back up.
Well, it's funny. I mean, historically, where does it begin? Which is also a great, title for something. Where does it begin? And parents may be like, well, what's the big deal? But this is where we are, and I have this conversation with my clients, but this is where we are. This is the technology age. our kids are growing up differently. And so as much, I mean, I'm going to be 59 and like in a sneeze. So trust me, I get it, like, wow, way, way different upbringing. Here's a good reference. When I was a little girl, I used to climb in the ice cream truck and do the route with my driver all throughout the neighborhood, sell ice cream, and then he would drop me off. And it was like a daily 2 hours. Like, would any mother in their right mind let their kid get into the ice cream truck today with a male driver? I mean, I think back on that, it was just like, it was no big deal. It was absolutely no big deal. But these are different times. And so I would encourage parents to sit back. I want people to be curious, like, why does it matter? Well, it matters a lot because, and you know this, and like, what are we creating? Why did we have kids to begin with? And what is the result? So eventually they leave. So are we raising children or are we raising adults? In my world, we are literally raising adults. We are raising the leaders of tomorrow.
Yep.
But is leadership an organic skill or is it learned? And what is our responsibility as parents to instill? And I'm not talking about grooming CEOs. I'm just talking about kids that can stand up for themselves, find a voice, which I think is a large part, our mental health challenge. People who have lost their voice, they don't know their place in the world. So what is our role in fostering that? So yes, I agree with you. This is not a shame conversation because what you and I both know, anybody who is a parent is the most well-intentioned person in the world. And I am not sitting here, nor would I ever challenge anybody's good intentions. But sometimes we just don't know. We bring so much baggage with us, and we just don't know what the implications of what we're doing.
The very first episode we did on the show, I think we're at 109 now episodes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The very first episode that we did was actually with my 19-year-old son, soon to be 20. And we talked about him and the way that, what kids actually need today. And I didn't teach him coping skills. And he struggled with anxiety and panic. And it was just a very interesting situation. I wasn't the perfect parent. I did the best that I could with the knowledge that I had at that point. And I think that's my life's motto for everything is I did the best that I could with the knowledge that I had, right? And what I love to do with the show is give people different knowledge, different perspectives. Hey, did you think about this? Not you have to do this, but did you think about this? Or maybe see it in a different way that will actually help you. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I created S.M.A.R.T.E.R Kids. And what it is, it sounds bad and it's not. And I did that on purpose. It sounds bad, but it's not. And what it is it is an acronym. So S.M.A.R.T.E.R Kids are actually what we're trying to build in them and what we're trying to teach them is security in their identity. Right? Because we want children who are going to be young adults and teens and full-blown adults creating their own lives. We want them secure in their identity, in their beliefs, right? The second one is maturity in their mindset, knowing their mindset, knowing how they have self-expression, knowing what they think, knowing how to express what they think and stand strong in their beliefs, right? Accountability, obviously, for their actions, because we want them to be accountable. What they say, what they do have repercussions, you need to think before you speak, right? So, and be accountable that, hey, maybe I didn't do that properly. How about I try again or do it in a different way, right? And holding that accountability.
That's on the leadership skill.
Yep. Responsibility for their lives, right? There is cause and effect to everything. So if your life is going a certain way, we can't blame our parents. Yes, I was raised by a narcissistic mother. and I could absolutely sit here and go, I blame her for everything. And I don't, because I made my own choices. And yes, she influenced some of them, but I still made the choices.
And
So
she also did the best she could.
Yeah. And so responsibility, right? Responsibility for your choices, for the way your life is going, because it is your life. Trust in themselves. They need to have that trust. And with trust comes confidence. It comes courage. It comes, the ability to make those choices for themselves. Trust that they have the power to go through everyday, events. Emotional stability, because who doesn't want emotional stability? Look at the amount of adults today who are dealing with emotional instability and are struggling with coping skills, with, all these things that are going on in their lives, and they don't know how to emotionally handle them. Yes. And then, of course, their readiness to face the world, because we want them to be ready. And that doesn't mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean they have to have it all figured out, but readiness to know that they have the confidence, the courage, and the self-love within themselves to actually try.
And know that they will get right back up if things just don't go according to their expected plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all going to be okay.
Yep. And they don't learn this stuff at school. And as parents today, and I know even for myself, with my oldest, I didn't teach him those things. Right? Yeah. I wanted to shelter him, and I was dealing with my own stuff. And so he missed out on those lessons until he figured them out for himself. My son is amazing now. Like you said in your bio, your rock stars, right? I have my own rock stars, and I'm so super proud of the progress they made. And it's creating that smarter kid.
Well, one could argue that every human walking the face of the earth, but we're talking about kids. So let's just we'll keep it narrowed to kids. Every kid's got rock star in them.
Yep.
I was a teacher for 20 years with 2 gifted children. Do you know that I didn't even know that they were gifted? And so my 20-year history, my entire classroom experience, I was a gifted teacher. I didn't know any differently. I thought all kids were like my kids. And guess what happened on the way to the forum? They all rose to my bar. Right? So like I kept raising the bar, and it didn't matter whether they were ES, it didn't matter where they came from. They all just really wanted to do it. So I raised the bar. I didn't know any better. So every kid is a rock star. Every kid is gifted in one way, shape, or form. It's our job to cultivate the gifts.
Yep. And they're all differently gifted, right? You said, are we born a leader, or are we made a leader? I believe we're born leaders. You look at some kids, and we're not all supposed to be leaders, right? We're all supposed to lead our own lives, but we're all not supposed to be leaders in the sense that I'm talking about. You see some kids when they're born, and they are confident, and they are powerful. And even at 2-3 years old, they're standing up, and you're like, my goodness, you would be a great lawyer, right? And they fight for their logic, and they fight for, what they believe to be true. Then they encourage other people to, right? And then you have some kids who are like, well, yeah, I see that. And right. And they're very logistical. All kids have gifts, but that's one of the main reasons I started this program in the first place, was because all kids are uniquely gifted. They each have, we're doing an episode. When is this episode? Hold on. So we are doing an episode, I believe it's next month, and I am so beyond excited for this episode. It is about changing schooling. I'm all for changing schooling, and I have off the wall thoughts, so I won't go into those thoughts. But if you look at companies, and there are some companies out there who will, instead of saying, I need this, this, and this, they will hire people based on their skills and go, hey, I can use this. And they encourage people to focus on their skills, right? Yes, build your weaknesses, build everything that's going on. But if you focus on their individual skills and help them build those skills while building the stuff, maybe they're not the greatest at, right? how many parents in our generation? So you said you're going to be 59 right away. How soon is right away? Is it
October.
this month? Is it
October.
October? Yeah. So I'm going to be 39 this month. So that's why I was like, yeah, I was like, we got similar, close enough generations, right? But when it comes to now, we turn around and we don't focus on skills. And you look at, I don't know how many generations, for anybody watching or catching the replay, please absolutely answer this question. How many of you heard, well, you can't be an artist because you'll be starving. You have to be a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or a teacher or whatever it is that your parents thought you needed to be, right? But all you wanted to do was be an artist. All you wanted to do was, do something that mattered to you. How many of us experienced that, where we wanted to do something that we absolutely loved, but we were discouraged to do?
Well, you could answer that for yourself when you were in quote unquote that what do I want to be when I grow up? I'm not doing what I mean, a teacher was the furthest thing. I mean, but now I was in corporate America for 10 years before I was a teacher. But I think when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian. Yeah. you know?
Yep.
So, what we think, I think maybe what you are describing, what I'm hearing anyway, is we don't do enough values assessment for our kids so that they understand, likes and dislikes when it comes to, based on what it is that you organically just love to do, or levels of energy and things like that. Like you would be best suited to do blank. Like if you hate science, you are not going to be, a nutritionist.
Yep.
Even though you think that sounds cool, that's just really scientific. But and our guidance counselors, bless their hearts, overworked as well. I don't know that they're even making those bridges right now. So now, luckily, our kids have Google University, and resourceful kids are trying to figure all that out on their own. But gosh, sometimes that just takes so long, just so
Yep.
long. I actually would like, it's really funny that you even said that, because I have a meeting later on this week with schools in my area to put these little snippets of content like you and I are discussing, but more strategic, right? More tactical.
That's what I'll be doing, yeah,
What can
eventually
you
as well.
do? And put it on their website. Even if it's just stinking free, I don't care. Just kind of swipe and deploy some tactics, at home, whether, so you around communication, like ask better questions, I mean, you and I may have had this conversation, but one of my all-time favorites as a teacher and as a mom during homework or in class, the hand, Mrs. Krebs, or at home, mom, we talked about the Stewie,
Yeah.
mom. It's like, oh my gosh, if you do that one more time, be like, what are you reading that you're not understanding? Whoa, that one stops kids dead in their tracks. To all of your listeners, swipe and deploy that one, because if they just wanted to be bailed out and given the answer, they won't have a response when you say, what is it that you're reading that you're not understanding? They completely disempowers. Now, I'm not trying to trick them. I'm just trying to make a point about asking really good questions so that we are more effective in what it is that we're trying to do.
And that one works really well when I don't think we realize just how when our children are not feeling empowered and they're not feeling happy. And I've shared this story 100 times. My daughter came home one day and I saw her walking up to the house and she was pissed. She was absolutely livid. And I was going out for a cigarette and I'm just like, no, I'm not engaging with her yet. And so I kind of like nodded and went outside for a cigarette, came back in, and she was livid with me. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are you mad? You could have said hi to me. And I'm like, let's back the train up right there, right? So asking that question, right, can kind of stop them in their tracks when they want a fight. And so I knew she wanted a fight. And so I backed it up right away. And I said, okay. I said, I know you were angry before you even walked in the house. I saw your face. I know what's coming. I said, but I didn't cause you to be angry. You just walked in the door. I have not had time to piss you off yet in the 2 minutes you've been home. I said, so your anger stems from something outside of this house. I said, I don't deserve to take the brunt of that anger. I said, so if you want to talk about what's bothering you and you want my help or you want to vent or whatever it is that you want to do, I am absolutely here when you've calmed down enough that you're not taking that out on me. Right?
Yeah, beautiful.
Right? Emotional stability. You need to know, and they need to know that it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, as long as you're not taking it out on other people. If you need to put yourself on a timeout, I'm 39 years old. I put myself on timeouts because I need them. If you need to go on a timeout to calm down and relax your emotions so that you can have a logical conversation to express yourself, absolutely do it.
Yeah. You know what, for your listeners, we can actually take that in a couple of different directions tactically, right? Because they're like, well, that's great. She's old enough to, articulate, or, she's, how old was she?
She's 13 now.
Okay. So how old was she then? I guess it really doesn't matter. I mean,
within the last year, I even do that with my 7-year-old too.
Well, and you know what? I was just going to say, you could technically do that with a 3-year-old, and it just sounds different. It would sound like my son, let's just say Benjamin. It was like, wow, it must be really hard to be Benjamin right now. Do you need to just sit and calm down a minute? And then I'll be here to listen to the rest of what you want to tell me. Right. So it really, that example, beautiful. But for all of those parents who are like, well, that's great for you. You have a daughter and you have a close relationship and you've already established communications. You know what? It starts little.
We weren't always that way.
But that I'm saying, it's a learned practice. So I just don't want anybody to walk away thinking, well, that's great for you. Or like, I have a special needs kid, so that's not going to work for me. Well, it does. Yeah. Everybody wants to be heard. Yeah. So it's kind of like, it must be really hard to be you right now. And we could use that as moms. We could use that as moms. Yep. It's really hard to be mom right now. I just need to take 5.
Yep. Even for nonverbal. Right. Yeah. And I stress this enough, even nonverbal actions. If your child is throwing a fit or a temper tantrum, or they're upset about, just sit. Just sit down. Don't talk to them. Don't touch them. Just sit down. Center yourself, because obviously we know when our kids are throwing a temper tantrum, our irritation level rises and we tend to get angry. They're angry and you're reacting to their emotion. That's all it is you are not unrealistically. You are emotionally reacting to their emotion. There's no logic behind it. You instinctually react. Yeah. That's not healthy for them. That's what they're doing. So take a beat, calm yourself down, put on some music, do whatever, and just sit with them. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to touch them. Just sit with them.
But see, now this is going to sound like I'm being judgmental, but this is where I think we have gone sideways a little bit. We're too darn busy. We are technology driven as well. And so let's be reminded, beautiful segue. Let's be reminded, we had these kids, they didn't ask to be born. And it is our responsibility to take 5 and be present with them if that's what they need. We can't ever be too busy to be a parent, because the repercussions down the road are way, like the ROI on that is just not worth it. And I think that in large part is our challenge in this busy world, to just be a little less on the hamster wheel and do our own present practice.
Yep. That's, you know what? I have so many parents who tell me my kids come first. My kids don't come first. I come first. I come first, then my husband, then my kids, because From the day I'm born to the day I die, it's me. That's it.
That's right.
From the time I meet my husband until the time we die, it's him and I. You know, potentially, it's him and I. But when I have my kids, when they're 17, 18, 19, they're going to move out. They're going to create their own lives. I'm not the focal point, right? So I'm constantly first. But there are times when that changes, right? And when they need you, that time changes. That's when you put being a mom at the forefront, right? That's when you snap on that role and you say, okay, my daughter came in here probably about an hour and a half ago, was prepping for the show. And she's talking to me while I'm typing something out. I was doing the infographic and she's talking to me and I'm like, oh, and she knows. And so I was getting frustrated and I turned to her and I said, you see that I'm busy. You know that when I'm doing stuff, I need to finish it. If I get into the zone, you need to just leave me for a few minutes. You could leave me a note. You could come back to me in 15 minutes. You could, check back in and get your answer. If it's time sensitive, you could say, Mom, I'm really sorry, but I need this answer right now. Whatever that looks like, but that communication, right? And the mutual respect. And then on the flip side of that, being a parent, and because we're talking about smarter kids, right, is we can't expect our kids to do what we're not willing to do. So
when you said that, I was thinking and for all listeners, you're setting boundaries, which she would hope that you have for her as well. Exactly. So you are modeling that they're unless if you are bleeding and we have to go to the emergency room, then I'm all there. And we have that trust that when you show me evidence that it's really important, otherwise this moment, this segment of time has to be mine, just as when you are doing whatever it is in your room, I respect your boundaries as well. So we model that for ourselves, unless, of course, it's an emergency. So if she comes and she's got a dangling finger, it's time to just abort the show.
Yeah, or my oldest daughter is a type 1 diabetic. So of course, if you're having a low and I've got to deal with that, absolutely, right? We'll deal with that. It is though, it's modeling that responsibility, the dual respect, the boundaries. I think as parents, one of the biggest things, and again, this is not a blame because we've all been there. We've all done that, but it's giving you a different perspective, is we don't classify children as human beings until they're adults and they assert their independence. Let's say I ask her to do something, right? I've just modeled that, hey, when I'm in the middle of something, I need a little bit of time. If you need my help, say, Mom, as soon as you're done, can we talk? Right? Not a problem with that. Now, if I go in there and I go into her room or she's playing video games or whatever it is, hey, I need your help with something. If I turn around and if she turns around and goes, Mom, can I have 15 minutes? I'm just in the middle of something. I can't turn around and go, no, you need to do it now. She's not my slave. She's not at my beck and call. Yes, she's my daughter. Yes, she has to be a part of this family and rules and regulations and all of that stuff. But I still need to give her the respect that I expect from her. Yeah. So if she says, you know what, I'll do it in 15 minutes, I try my very hardest to give them the respect, right? There are times where I'm like, you are done lying in your bed. I asked you hours ago to do what I need you to do. Now you're going to get up and you're going to do it. Right. But you give them that freedom. Right. And if I have to get to that point where I'm like, now it's time for you to do it, then I will walk her through the day and say, I asked you hours ago to do this. You told me 15 minutes. You gave me that boundary and I respected that boundary, right? And that's teaching them responsibility. That's teaching them accountability. You gave me that. Accountability. Yeah. That's why the smarter, right? You gave me that time frame. I'm holding you accountable to that time frame and you still didn't do it. So responsibility and accountability.
Okay. I have a question. I have a question for you.
Mhm.
How long are we going to get to talk?
An hour. We have about
Okay.
half an hour left.
Okay. All right. I know. I'm watching because we could come up and we don't have to segue now, but I would love an opportunity for you to ask the audience because you and I both know. And I think the listeners, and when you are having a conversation, whether it's over lunch or at an event or at a party or whatever, or with a friend about the woes of what they're dealing with, this is like the universal sub language. Everybody that is a parent can talk about this. And even those that aren't parents know kids, whether they're aunts or whatever it is, everyone has something to do with kids at some point. What is the easiest, most effective way to have these conversations where parents don't go, yeah, nope, that's not me. Nope, no, bitch, you're not going to tell me what to do because I got this dialed in, right? Because it sounds like you and I are so passionate about this, whether it's today, whether they're 3 or 13 or 23 or 33. I got a 30-year-old, but why do parents get so defensive? Why is this the one area where parents shut down and go, yep, nope, I got this. And yet they know, okay, thank you. And then like maybe your listeners, and maybe you already know the answer based on your listeners, and I'm new to the party. So, okay, so all of your community, like I'm in, but I really want to know, like I want to know the solution to this.
So the reason why, and it's not just parenting, it's relationships, it's parenting, it's life, it's business, it's all of it, right?
But people will seek out romantic relationship help all day long. How to be a better lover, how to have better sex, how to woo your guy, how to make him think about you all day long, the text conversation that you can have.
But that's different though, right? That's different. That's asking for different knowledge, right? As parents, let's just stick to parenting. Yep. I'll stick to parenting for this one. So as parents, we've been raised by our own parents. I'm going to segue for a second and you'll get the explanation in a minute. So I created what I call the 7 mindset pillars. Okay. And they're the 7 most important areas of our life. And if you think of like the Mount Olympus, I think we've all seen pictures of Mount Olympus at one point, right? And it's these big ginormous pillars holding up this building, sure, right? Sure. So that's what I picture as the pillars. And as we're kids and as we're growing up, we're creating beliefs in these 7 pillars. We're creating our entire belief system in each of these pillars. So you've got yourself, your romantic relationships, your spirituality, your family, your friends, all of that, right? Your career, finances, that kind of thing. Well, we're raised a certain way. And as we're raised a certain way, we're taught how to be parents. We're taught how we want to be as parents or how we don't want to be as parents by our parents' examples. And so we create this idea of what it means to be a parent for us. And that's how we parent. Now, is it wrong? Is it right? Either one, right? It's never wrong or never right because your beliefs are wrong.
Until we do it.
Exactly. But what ends up happening is when anybody gives you a perspective that is not the same as yours, automatically it triggers 2 responses. The first response is, that's the emotional, but the first response, because a reaction is emotional, response is logical. Okay. Sure. So our logical response, the first one is that you're wrong. Because the person giving the opinion or the belief is making you question your own. So automatically we clap back, and that's the reaction. Automatically we clap back and go, bitch, no, like I'm not having any of that, because it's making us question ourselves.
Okay.
Right? And that's the standoffish. The second part of that is we've been taught as a society that if people don't think the same way, you have to fight with them until they agree with you. And that's the second response, is then it becomes a fight. No, I do this and it works fine for my kids and it's all good. Have you asked your kids? Right? My biggest parenting tip, and I'm gonna throw this out there. My number one parenting tip to everybody is to understand, acknowledge, and remember that your child is an individual human being and will not be your child forever. They have their own beliefs, they have their own opinions, they have their own emotions, they have their own self-expression. If they don't want to play the piano, don't force them to play the fucking piano. They are people. And like I said before, we don't identify them as people until they assert their dominance or their independence. We should be giving them that their whole life.
It's our responsibility to remain curious, to find out all of that beautiful list that you just ran through, their values, their interests, their beliefs, all of that's our job. That's, you just nailed, that's our job. And I do the same thing with my clients. Be a really curious listener.
Well, it's like having clients.
Yeah. Ask great questions and remain curious and open to their answers, and then respond. Or it might not require any response at all, but you have to learn with every pass what these little humans are trying to, like, they will tell you anything and everything if you just stop and listen.
Yep.
They'll tell you everything they need.
You look at us, we're coaches, right? Half of our audience are coaches. What is the one thing you're taught as a coach? To identify your ideal client, the avatar. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What are their interests? And we make it a point as coaches, as entrepreneurs, to find out our clients, even if you're a brick and mortar, right? Even if you work in the corporate business, you have to know your clientele. Your child is basically your clientele. You have to know what they like, what they dislike, how to encourage them, how to talk to them, how to help them express themselves clearly and emotionally so that they're happy and healthy. When we try to, if you've ever worked with a business coach who tries to push their beliefs on you, you know that it's cringy, you know that it's gross, and it makes you feel like shit. Okay. That's what we do as parents, is unfortunately, we try to push all of our beliefs onto our children instead of letting them figure out their own.
Yeah, it's funny that you even say that, because there was an iteration of a program that I was designing, and I even was toying with language that it was like, become your child's coach, or like teaching adults or teaching parents how to be the coaches for their kids. And I was like, that's going to fall flat, because nobody, unless you're a coach, understands what that really means. But I agree with you 500%. That's really what we're doing.
Yep. And that's our job. It's our job to coach them. It's our, you think of any real good, great coach is going to teach you tools and techniques. Absolutely. We're going to tell you, hey, have you thought of it this way? Or have you tried this? Or this is what I do. Not to say, hey, you have to do it this way, or you have to follow my plan, or you have to follow this. It's, who are you? What do you like? How can we make your dreams come true the best way for you? That's what we're doing for our kids. I agree with the way you worded it. That's our job. That is our job as parents, to birth, whether male or female, I don't care, birth and raise healthy, happy, individual human beings who are going to go on and be the next generation of our society. And I'm sorry, but if you look, and please correct me if you disagree, or not even correct me, but let me know if you disagree, because I agree to disagree.
Yes,
But
and
let me know
I
if
know
you guys,
too. You can
yeah,
write in and say she's full of bullshit.
our society is imploding. We are on a crash course of imploding this entire generation because we don't see other people's opinions. We don't acknowledge and unconditionally love those around us. We're so caught up in our own opinions and beliefs that we can't see how to have happy, healthy communication, how to not be bullies. And, you know, if you have a kid that's a bully, and my kid was a bully at one point, when you have a kid that's a bully, there's something going on with them, right? If your kids are acting out, there's something going on with them. It's not, you know, I asked my husband at one point because my daughter, my son had his issues, my daughter has her issues, they all do, right?
Sure.
And I asked my husband once, I'm like, I explained it to my husband once, and I'm like, it's not like she's, you know, when you're kids, they don't listen and they constantly go against your rules and your regulations and all of this, right? And I'm a pretty decently giving parent, but every time they don't listen and every time it's like a smack in the face. It's like your kid is like smacking you in the face constantly, right? But that's not what it is. They're asserting themselves. They're trying to be their own individual. If you treated your children, or sorry, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to reword that. If you were treated by your best friend, by your coworkers, by your employers, if you were treated by them the way that you speak and treat your own children, how would you react? I'd probably punch people. You know, I grew up, I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and we are friendly Manitoba. But as soon as you piss us off, we're going to throat punch you. That's just that's the mentality I grew up in this city, is that we are friendly until you piss us off, then we throat punch you, right? So figuratively, sometimes literally, depending on the person that you encounter. But at the same time, my kids, right, is if somebody talked to me the way that I used to talk to my kids, I'd be like, F you, you can leave now. Like, no. Right? They're individuals. They're not our property. They're not our little cakes to mold. They're human beings.
And I hope everybody buys into that, because I think my kid, I mean, clearly I'm 20 years your senior, so I've got older kids and older friends. And interestingly, I don't know whether you have this yet, but, and maybe some of your viewers know somebody. And again, this isn't a judgment, even though it's going to sound like that, but it's kind of like there's a point to this. When we don't foster our kids figuring out sense of self, what that turns into as an adult is an adult version of not having a sense of self. And so when we foster that as a young age, that means we don't live vicariously through our children. We allow them to just be them while we maintain ourselves, which is piggybacking on your comment about you first, you and your husband second, and then kids. Like, that's really the mindset that's so healthy. And that's like, don't take that as a like you're still doing the right thing. You're just giving the best of yourself by making deposits in yourself first. And then we're also teaching that to our kids. Because if we don't do that, then we are contributing to, I mean, to 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds that still don't know what they want to be when they grow up, that are, you know, floundering in the world of, and their kids are leaving the nest and they're looking in the mirror going, who the hell are you? And they look at the person that they're maybe still living with and going, who the hell are you? And do I even like you? Because their kids became the absolute 400% focus. We did everything for you, and now you're leaving. Who am I? So
Yep.
there's so many.
That's called a life crisis.
And we are, yeah, we're just going, I mean, we're going off on a couple of different tangents. So if we bring it back, when we cultivate strong wings, smart kids with your acronym, strong kids, whatever you want, independent kids, if whoever's jargon you want to adopt, hopefully all of them, because not one is correct, then really what we are doing is creating fantastic, viable, contributing humans that have strong mind, strong soul, strong character, all of those things. And then we will do our part of reducing this mental health crises.
Yep.
I think in large part that's where it's coming from. We don't teach kids how to do that for themselves.
Yep. So you just, and I love that you expressed all that, because I'm just sitting here all giddy, right? So I'm an identity coach. That's my number one business, right? So yeah, so I'm an identity coach, and I do individual coaching, relationship coaching, as well as family and group coaching in that sphere as an identity coach, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm like, this is exactly why I do what I do. So my Smarter Kids is not just Smarter Kids. Today it's Smarter Kids, but it's smarter everybody, because I love how you explained it, because the people that I work with, the individuals that I work with, the adults particularly, they're not smarter yet, right? So I'm helping them or assisting them or empowering them to find their identity, to get secure in their identity. And I'm going through the smarter process with them, right? Because they're adults who have no idea who they are, no idea what they want. They are images of their parents. They are people pleasing and putting their kids 400% first, and not realizing that they've got a roommate that they occasionally have fun with, who they don't know who that person is anymore, right? Because the kids have been the focus. The career has been the focus, right? Individuals who retire and have no idea what to do with themselves because their career has been their focus, right? It's the SMARTER acronym for adults and kids alike. I just detailed it for the kids today. But if we think about the amount of individuals I work with on the daily who are going through the SMARTER method, and why wouldn't you want to learn that for kids, right? Why wouldn't you want, if you're struggling in that SMARTER sphere now,
that's it, right? That's it.
Why wouldn't you want your kids not to have to deal with that, right? And like you said, teach them early. Absolutely teach them early that they're individuals. That's security in their identity, right? The maturity to know who they are and what they want and what they don't want, their mindset, the, accountability of, hey, you're going to scream, you're not going to get the ice cream. Like,
I have a question for you. How many times in your work, and I'm cognizant there's an audience out there, but I promise this will resonate with you as well. How many times have you worked with a family, allegedly, with their kid issues, and then you realize that mom and dad are actually not only at the crux of the issue with the kids, but when you're watching their, like in a Zoom call, I'm assuming some of it is, virtual, they're looking at each other the entire time, but you are watching them interact with each other. You're like, oh boy, we've got some work to do with this relationship, because mom and dad's got some stuff to work through too. So it's all integrated. And I think that would be the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful takeaways would be to remain curious about it's not just one thing. It's an integration of all of it. And we can't focus, you've got a beautiful method, and I've got some, highlights and some strategies as well. But you and I both know, you get into work with people, you are deep in their weeds. And the more you walk in those weeds, you realize you got lots of integrations, which actually, you know what, that goes back to your pillars, right? Like all the pillars that are holding up that sphere of reality. And
My
so,
clients called me the connect the dots.
right. Yeah, that's so funny.
Right?
My girlfriend just said that to me yesterday. She just says, she's like, you're like the great, you just connect the dots so organically and easily. People must just love working for you because you just see it from a complete bird's eye view. It makes so much
Yeah.
sense.
It's so much
That's your
easier.
superpower. That's our superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that. It's because it is, right? I see it from an outside unbiased perspective. Even my own family, I have the capability to take away my emotional beliefs and go, what do you need? Not what I want. What do you need? Right? And I think, and for anybody watching or catching the replay, 99% of family issues or a lack of communication or a lack of, just centered and easement in families comes down to not feeling heard,
Yep.
not feeling in control, and not feeling respected. And that goes for everybody, right? I don't know how many times I've had father and daughter saying the exact same thing, different way, and neither one of them realizing that they're both right. And if they would just get their emotions under control, they would hear that they're agreeing.
So, what is the conversation that families have with themselves to recognize that they could afford to just have maybe a little bit of help? And for anybody, like as a coach, we don't want to get married. We just want to kind of give you some tools and then set you free. And if you want to dip back on occasion just to check in, that's cool. But as a coach, we don't want to we don't want to get married. We just want things to improve for you. So, what is the conversation that families have when they would say to themselves, their partner, whatever, like, I think we need a little help in this regard? How do we remove the stigma?
Most of the time it gets to a point where I can't do this anymore, and it usually ends in divorce because most of the time one of the parents can't handle it anymore, and the arguments with the kids, and it becomes so stressful and so toxic that the thought of leaving is usually the culmination of people actually getting help, and even then they don't get help. So I would suggest is asking yourself if this is how you want your family to function, right? Ask everybody if they feel respected. If you ask yourself, or even just sit down as a family, and everybody goes around there, and you need to learn, and this goes for everybody in that family, you need to learn and be the example of how to control your emotions, because your emotions are what's going to get you in trouble. Control your emotions and actually listen. I have a PDF that anybody can download. I'll put it on my website. It is the 7 most destroying relationship issues. And it's not listening, making it about yourself. There's a whole list of them. If those things are happening in your family, you need to work on those. Absolutely and utterly, you need to work on those. I'm going to be making that a do-it-yourself course, so that might help as well futuristically. But for right now, ask yourselves if you feel like you're being heard, if you feel like you're being respected, and if you feel like you're in control of your own life.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like I'm just one human with a lot of passion. But boy, if I had the makings of being a movement maker, like that's what it really is. It's just kind of a shift, in awareness. We've got all these tools. Everybody would say, "Oh, yeah, we've got all these tools," and yet we're just and we're still. I'm going to say failing, and I don't mean that but we're failing our kids.
We're not motivated.
It makes me so sad.
Do you know what the movement maker is? Is the amount of suicides and the amount of mass shootings that are going on by children who don't have the proper mental health. And I'm not blaming the parents. There's no blame or shame. But the amount of kids that go through life with a fear of expression, a fear of their own identity, a lack of their own identity, a lack of coping skills. That's what comes down to those issues, is those kids don't know who they are. They don't know how to cope with how they feel, and they emotionally react to everything. Whether they're planning it out or not, that's an emotional reaction that they're doing because that is the only option they feel they have.
This has to stop.
We need to do better.
This has to stop. We cannot be so crisis reactive where we're playing whack-a-mole after every emergent event. It just is all wrong. Makes me so sad. But I'm going to be a part of the solution and not the problem. Just like
exactly. Exactly.
Just like
as parents, just again, ask yourself what you would want. What do you want? What do you need to feel healthy? Do you need communication? Do you need respect? Do you need, remember what it was like for you growing up. Our kids need open communication. They need safety. They need non-judgmental, a safe space to come. My kids can ask me anything without any judgment. I might laugh. I might giggle. I might get frustrated, but they know that it's not going to change that I love them. It's not going to change my ability to help them or counsel them through whatever it is that they're going through, because that's my job as a parent, to be there for them.
Not do for them, be there for them. Thank you. That was like so beautifully said, and I didn't mean to jump on your conversation. I could not let that pass by because that was like a beautiful marriage of phraseology. It was just like, yeah, we have to stop doing for them and just be there for them.
Yeah, they know if mom has to do it for them. Mom's usually super pissed. Don't ask me for anything for like a couple days. Not literally, but yeah, like if you're not going to do your chores and I end up having to do them because now it's affecting me, you need to, why are you doing that? Like my oldest daughter is in charge of the dishes. And if I have to do the dishes before dinner, it's
but even like calling school or, calling a credit card company or a job. I mean, anything. Like, don't ask me, like, that's you. It's okay if you don't get it right the first time, but make those calls. You're good. You got
accountability.
You got great communication skills. You can call and see if the store is open. I don't need to do that. You can find the answer. So yeah,
it's like ordering at a restaurant. I don't know how many times my kids will be like, "What do you want?" They'll tell me, and I say, "No, you tell them. I'm not speaking for you, right? You need to tell them." And it's just building the confidence enough. Speaking of, my daughter's just walking down the street, apparently. I didn't even hear her leave. My husband's home and I knew she was going out, so that's fine. But yeah, just the accountability, the confidence, the courage. When kids are sure of who they are, and as an adult, and this is another big nugget, as an adult, you think about your own life and how you handle your own life. Kids have it worse. We always say, "Oh, figure it out," or "You'll be okay," or "It's so easy being a kid." It's not. That's when you learn who you are. That's where every argument mom and dad have is on you because you internalize everything. This is when they need the most help. And when they're going to school 8 to 4 or 8 to 3:30, and they're only learning, and don't get me started on schools. I love the education system, but could you imagine if we changed the education system so that it stopped at grade 6? Right? And if they wanted to take further, like if you had a kid that wanted to be a scientist, send them to science after, right? Get them into part-time schooling where they can, when they're 12, 13, 14, and they can start going to work, they need to learn those experiences, right? And you get bullying the worst in grades 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That's when bullying really becomes the thing, right? That's when, and like I said, I have so many thoughts on schooling. It's not even funny, but we need to be teaching kids financials. We need to be teaching them responsibility, accountability, all of these things, and they're not being taught, and that falls on us.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to add before we get going now that we're at the 3 o'clock mark?
I know. I was watching I was like, oh, we could go on
Oh,
forever.
yeah. Good.
We could be
Mhm.
solving all the problems of the world. I again, I will be so anxious to hear from listeners, live or recorded. Just you know, just to hear impressions, reactions. You and I are two people that clearly have a lot of passion and experience in all of this, and the credentials to back it up and all of that. But as you know, and you said your audience is mostly coaches, we learn so much from what everybody shares with us. So the more people contribute to, what are you dealing with? What do you want to know more about? That gets us out of our echo chamber, and we can be more responsive in our teachings to what actually is really happening. I just share my kids are 26 and 30. So I don't, I have to work very intentionally with my clients and my teacher friends to figure out what's going on in the world today. So I guess the biggest takeaway is don't be afraid to share, because everybody has everyone's got their shit, right? Just own your shit and ask people about it, because that's the way we can like get out of your own head. Let us all lean into each other. Let us be our own example for our kids and ask for help. Find the help, be resourceful, ask questions, remain curious, listen, learn. Okay, I'm done. Soapbox over.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, thank you for
You are a
joining me
delight.
today.
You are a delight.
Yeah, you and I could have quite the conversations on many different topics because yes, highly passionate, but also extremely knowledgeable, right? I've been through my fair share with my kids. I have four that range from 7 to 20. So yeah, it's been interesting, right? And I remember what it was like being a kid for me. It wasn't easy. All right. We go through so much. We have so many stresses, so many life changes. Just give yourself grace as a parent, but also give your kids some grace. They're struggling regardless of how great of a parent you are. They're still struggling because they're not you. And remember that they are individuals. They're not our little property or our little molds or little mini.
And it's funny because a word that I never use, like I'm just anything, right? It's just such a disqualifier. But it really works when you say to your kids, I'm just a mom. Because they see you as some bigger, when in reality, you're just a mom or you're just a dad. Be human to them. Let them know that you also are authentic and you make mistakes and you're learning along with them and you don't expect to be perfect. And so that's probably the only time that I think it's acceptable to use the word just as a great, like, mom, you did, like, I'm just a mom doing the best I can, just as I expect you to do. Just a mom.
Yep. I'd even go, I'm just Melissa. Just like you're just Bella. You just figure it out, right? We make mistakes. I cry in front of my kids. I get angry in front of my kids. I fuck up in front of my kids. They need to learn. And if they're not going to learn, they learn by example. If you show them an example, I know people who won't cry in front of their kids and I'm like, why? Like they need to know it's okay. It's okay to have emotion. It's okay to be whatever it is that you are. And I could go on forever, but
we need to take the stage.
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, I've no doubt on that. No doubt on that.
That audience would be on fire.
Yeah.
We should talk about that sometime. Come up with
for sure. I was thinking about it. Anyway, we'll get into that another time. But all right, just a family.
Thank you to everybody for viewing from wherever you are, live, replay or whatever. Just own your shit and do the very best you can, and know that we all get it. We're all on the same side. We all get it. So God bless everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you to
All
you.
right. Well, thank you again for joining me. If anybody wants to connect with either Janet or myself, you can do so. Our links are in the description of this video. Check out A Phoenix Identity. There's the infographic for the Smarter Kids. There is also a wait list that you can sign up for the Smarter Method program for kids, and get into that. Like, follow, and share the show. Join our newsletter at justalivetv.com. You can check out all of our episodes. We have 100 plus episodes on the website for you to go and listen and or watch. And yeah, get involved. We're always looking for guest speakers, guest bloggers. And if you want a topic featured on the show, let us know. We're always looking for featured topics. That's why the show is called Giving You Something to Talk About. So join us. And yeah, lots of love. I'm Melissa Krechler. I'm your host. Janet, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, Just a Family. See you all on the next episode. Bye.